You're looking at Unrendered on IKTV. On this edition of the program, as I said, two familiar guests, Stephen Joachim and Chester Connell. Gentlemen, welcome to the studios of IKTV, first time for the year.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Chester.
Thank you, Tony. It's a great 2014. We're in for a lot of excitement this year, apparently, some which we did not anticipate at the end of 2013.
Well, there you go, and it seems that way. And we're going to talk about the Christmas floods, and we're also going to try to get in, well, not try to get in, I'm going to start off with the budget debacle. I call it the budget debacle anyway. As if the Christmas floods were not, engaging enough with drama and that sort of thing. Here comes the budget debate 2014.
With more raging
and
torrents.
there's really no debate. Stephen, I'm going to start out with you. Is the opposition justified in not debating?
Tony, obviously, we have all seen, again, I want to refer to Kenton Chance's Eyewitness News and give him the credit that he's due, because he presented, he showed us the NDP's presentation and justification, if you like, for not being in Parliament. As an independent person and at the risk of being called an acolyte or other names, I would like to say that I think the NDP have made a mistake. I think that whoever is advising the NDP, or if they're advising themselves, I think at some stage you need to look in the mirror and say, who am I trying to appeal to win an election? And in my mind, and I've said it before, 45% of all people are going to vote for the NDP, 45% for the ULP, no matter what. My view, therefore, is you're trying to appeal to moderate people who are going to think and analyze for themselves before they make a decision.
Those are the 10% you're saying?
That's what I think, absolutely. And again, it's just an opinion. I could be wrong.
Right.
But
when
you say response, I have
what
spoken
you're
to many people, many supporters of the NDP, many friends of mine who are strong supporters of the NDP. And I have yet to meet one single one who is a sort of thinking, rational, sensible person who thinks that this was the right thing that the NDP did. I think they made a mistake personally. I think they had missed a great opportunity to show up the ULP administration.
Before I bring in Chester, let's analyze. Let me take you up on this, because the NDP has put forward some reasons why not standing up to the debate was justified. And the primary reason is that they would have been debating in a vacuum. That was the leader of the opposition responding to a question I think Kenton Chance asked. They would have been debating in a vacuum because in the absence of the presentations of the ministers of government that they shadow, the individual members of the opposition shadow, without their presentations, what would have been there to debate?
Well, first of all, it is not a debate as I see it. It is not a genuine debate. What it is a presentation. It's giving my opinions of what the budget is and saying, what do I think of this? And maybe even give me an opportunity to say, I would do this differently. And to say there was nothing to, quote unquote, debate or respond to is, in my view, incorrect. The Prime Minister made a presentation. I've got all 90-something pages of it here. There is a lot of information in there. There's a lot of what I am going to do and so on. There's also a document that is published every year called the estimates. This is the 2012 one. I don't have the current one.
Right.
There's 600 pages here.
So they had that 45 days
They had
before
these
the
before.
budget debate.
This is what I am told, unless I am wrong. They had this information in their hands. This spells out the government plans in detail, in minuscule detail. If you want to know what a teacher makes his salary, is in this document. It's here. There's lots of information. Not only that, the government go out of their way, actually, to make it easy to criticize them. For example, it says something, encourage representatives of the corporate private sector to do this, this, or this. And what does it say in the column next to it? This is their goal for last year. What did they accomplish? No progress to date.
Right.
This is...
And there's a lot of that.
And it's a wonderful document. It has all the detail. So for the NDP to say there was nothing to criticize and there was nothing to talk about, is wrong. It is not a debate. There is no debate. Somebody gets up and make a presentation, Tony. Somebody gets up and makes another presentation for the other side. This is not a debate. So we don't have opportunity.
So you're saying it's not an exercise of present and rebut, basically. It's not that.
No, because the presentation is already here. Whether somebody gets up and talks about it for half an hour, 45 minutes is irrelevant. The presentation is already there, in my opinion. And I think the NDP made a glorious, missed an opportunity to get up and say, you know what? Government ministers, you don't know what you're doing. You can't even get up and defend your positions. I am going to take it on myself and tell you and make my comments about what you claim that you're going to spend money on. And I think they missed a great opportunity.
Chester, You've been following this, I think. I know you're quite wary of politics as it stands, and I could see the expression on your face when I said we're going to
Move on to the next topic.
move on to agriculture. Off the grid.
Yeah, agriculture, yeah.
Yes, but what are you making of all this?
Well, notwithstanding what Stephen has said, I think he has some valid points. But again, you know, there are always many factors in any given situation. So let's first establish that I am not an expert on parliamentary procedure, 1. 2, as a journalist, I usually get my information and talk after I've spoken to the experts. So I happen to have met Mr. Daniel Cummins and got his impression. I have not spoken to the Prime Minister, which I would have liked to have done.
Correct.
And I also would have liked to have spoken to somebody like Monty Moore.
You spoke to Sir James Mitchell as well, didn't you?
I heard him say that this happened before. And I still am not sure exactly what I understand happened in his early days, in the early days of the NDP administration, because apparently the same thing happened when Prime Minister James Mitchell was in the House in the early 80s, in the mid-80s.
So he was the one who did what Prime Minister Gonsalves did?
Apparently.
Right. Okay.
But my basic understanding is that parliamentary procedure is an intricate thing. This is something that has to be studied. And I think if I were to defend the NDP, which I am not, I think that they were expecting a certain procedure to take place, and that is that the government ministers would speak,
right,
and then they would respond, and they got sidelined in that process.
Let's not dwell over this, but let's look at it, because we've all listened to budget debates over and over and over, right?
Budget, boring.
Stephen says not a debate, but I say it's still a debate. You've had instances where 3 people from one side would go one after the other. So clearly there's no particular order. There's no opposition, government.
That's correct.
Or government, opposition, government, opposition, government, opposition. Listening to the NDP, their rationale, it would seem to me that they're saying that there's some understood order of how the proceedings should move forward. There's like an unwritten rule that this is how it should move forward.
And Tony,
but it really has not obtained like that in the past.
No, but and that is all well and good, and I understand the NDP's point. I just think they missed a great opportunity. I do agree with the NDP that the ULP ministers should have got up and made a presentation. However, the fact that they didn't, to me, just presents a great opportunity for you to show what you are capable of, because you want to be in government.
Well, let's look at the bigger picture, though. You are a government minister or a government senator on the government side. You too have some contribution to make, right? Haven't you yourself suffered or missed an opportunity by not getting up to speak in the same way that the NDP missed an opportunity by not getting up to speak?
I think you could argue that, but I don't think it's necessarily a valid point. The reality is that the government's budget was presented. It is the government's budget. The government is made up of the members of parliament who comprise the NDP also. They're included. They were part of the budgeting process. So you could make an argument that, you know what, guys, so what if I didn't get up and talk for half an hour? Because when I get up and talk for half an hour, I'm not saying anything meaningful anyway. I'm not saying anything that hasn't really already been touched upon somewhere else or that isn't in this document. That, to me, the budget debate is a PR exercise. That's all it is.
Just that.
Very interesting story that Sir James gives in his book, which everyone should read, I think, as they should read Ralph Gonsalves' book as well, because we need to understand who we are. It's a part of the process. But he says in there, he gives the time when he was almost shut out of Parliament. He was in Beckwith, and he had to hire a speedboat and, rushed up to St. Vincent and caught the government off guard.
And says, gentlemen, I'm here.
I'm here, okay? So in other words, you have to be, if you're in politics, you have to be like a wily coyote. You've got to, it's about outsmarting the other side. And you've got to have the brain and the tactics to do that.
So are you saying, go ahead, Jess.
I just want to finish my point by saying, I don't think, given the ability of the Prime Minister, he is a world-class politician. And I think the NDP will always be caught, it seems, what's the expression? Lead-footed when dancing in Parliament with the Prime Minister. And the other thing is that it just shows that incident just shows the complete divisiveness of our political system, where this is going to continue.
So I also thought you were going to make the point that when Sir James had to come from Beckway at night to get across the channel into the House of Parliament before they wind up
Without a jacket, and you
without
had
a
to borrow
jacket,
one.
whatever, before they wind up the debate on him, right? And he was a voice in the opposition. He was actually making sure that he got his time.
Yes.
And then he spoke. He said he spoke for something like
3 days or something.
3 days after that, or whatever.
Yes.
Right. So I thought you were going to make the point that it was Sir James anxious to get the time, but then the opposition here being offered the time and they're not using it.
Right. Well.
Is that the? I'm not putting words in your mouth.
No. I'm hearing Mr. Leacock said, and again, thank you, Mr. Eyewitness News.
Kenton Chance.
Kenton Chance.
Kenton.
Mr. Leacock said that the debate was over, so there's no point staying in the House. The debate was over. The Prime Minister was on his feet.
Except that wasn't quite true, because the Speaker did offer them on at least 2 occasions.
But that was before.
Correct. Would you like to speak, basically? Is there anybody else who wants to speak? And nobody
But I think
wanted to speak. On either side, I might add. Nobody else wanted to speak. Clearly then, the Prime Minister had decided that his side had nothing to contribute, or they would wait until after the NDP said, and then they would respond. And as you, I believe, correctly said earlier on, while there has been, I guess, precedent of how things roll, there is no set policy or no set procedure. That's my understanding, and I am not an expert in this field. But again, my thing here is that the NDP missed a great opportunity.
It leads us on to the bigger question. Let's really look at the state of politics in St. Vincent. Let's look at the state of this divisive situation that we are in. Where do we go? How do we resolve this? Clearly, another election may not resolve it. But let's hold it there and pick it up when we come back for the next section. This is Unrendered on IKTV. More with Stephen Joachim and Chester Connell when we return.